The action, the intensity, and the longest party in motorsports is ready to be fired up. The biggest teams, the bravest drivers, and the most famous automotive brands are ready to prove themselves in battle. Today on IMSA, the road to racing, the spectacle that is the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And it's the first stop of the 2019 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. We also take a look at the Michelin Pilot Challenge. So fasten your seatbelts because it's time to go sports car racing. Daytona is not just a race, and it's not just a place. It's the world's center of racing. Is the backdrop, the setting of the first, the longest, and the most grand opening event in all of sports. The 2019 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship begins with both a true celebration of endurance sports car racing, as well as the hardest test its teams and drivers will face all year long. This is the place where the most epic racing stories have been written. Fans here are presented with the greatest innovations, infrastructure, and facilities. Drivers want to win every race on the calendar. And this year, the taste of winning will have an extra sweetness added to it as IMSA, the International Motorsports Association, celebrates its golden anniversary as it turns 50 years old in 2019. This 3.8 miles of racetrack are unlike any other in the world. High banks mixed with tight chicanes and an international horseshoe provide a unique challenge both behind the wheel and in the garage area. And when the sun goes down, they'll turn on the stadium lights high above this historic racetrack just in time for you to see the stars come out from Formula One, the Indianapolis 500, and NASCAR, as well as the greats of IMSA sports car racing itself. The cars are ready, the fans are here, and the drivers are strapped in. Everyone, absolutely everyone, is ready to go racing for 24 hours at Daytona. Now let's take a look at some news from the IMSA paddock. IMSA is celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2019, an extra reason to make this season one of the most exciting in history. World-famous tire manufacturer Michelin becomes IMSA's official tire in 2019. Axalta and Global Medical Response have joined as official sponsors of IMSA. Brazilian racer Christian Fittipaldi will make his last professional race in this year's Rolex 24 at Daytona. The former IMSA champion hangs up his helmet after a lifetime of famous victories which have brought him global recognition. Heinricher Racing with Meyer Shank have brought an all-female driving squad for 2019. The wheel of the Acura NSX will be Simona Di Silvestro, Catherine Legge, Beat Figueiredo, and Christina Nielsen. Fernando Alonso of Spain and Kamui Kobayashi, the current 24 Hours of Le Mans champions, have been confirmed as a part of the starting lineup for the Konica Minolta Wayne Taylor Racing Team. Italian Alex Zanardi will be on board an official factory BMW M8, which has been converted to include hand controls. Alex, a multiple gold medal winner in the Paralympics, continues to want to battle at the very highest level of motorsport. At the front of the field, IMSA has split the prototypes into two categories, the DPIs, Daytona Prototype International, and the LMP2, Le Mans Prototype 2. And for 2019 at Daytona, IMSA welcomes even more cars and manufacturers. The new Porsche 718 Cayman GT4, the Aston Martin AMR Vantage GT4, the Alfa Romeo Giulietta TCR, the Hyundai Veloster N TCR, and the Honda Civic TCR. Winning any race is something special, but winning the Rolex 24 at Daytona means entering history alongside the great heroes of motorsport. You need to be brave to race here, but perhaps you need to be even more brave to make the decision to end your career at Daytona. The reigning champion of the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona, Christian Fittipaldi, will call it quits on his racing career after this year's 24 Hours.
How do I feel now? Sad of course, I'm not gonna lie. Happy too, but the most important of all is that I'm calm inside, calm with myself. Now it's time to close a chapter of my life and open the next one. I'm going to analyze and see what the better future for Christian is. Continuing with racing but without driving or doing something completely different. I believe that it is to continue with racing that I like a lot. It was part of my life for 38 years. Starting something completely new now that I'm 40 years old will be very difficult. Emotionally it's a very different race, of course. But I'm a professional. I have a team behind me that hired me to do my job in the best possible way. I must put the emotions aside and think only of Christian, the driver, who is driving the Mustang sampling car number 5 and doing the best job possible for my team, whether it be my first race or the last race of my life.
So we'd like to welcome you to the brand new 2019 season, the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship here at Daytona International Speedway. This is IMSA's 50th anniversary, our golden season. Here at Daytona this year, for 2019, a couple of small changes. We've gone from a 3-class structure to a 4-class structure. We've split the Daytona Prototype Internationals off from the LMP2 cars. From a BOP perspective, we used to use the Roar as a test bed to gather information for the balance of performance. Uniquely, we went back to 2018, the 24 hours of Daytona. So what we did is we took all of those performance metrics, we calculated them into a BOP for the starting point for this year. So instead of coming from the last race of 2018, we went back to Daytona 2018 because of the unique track layout. We did that in all 4 classes. So what you'll see is a modified BOP from 2018 Rolex.
Well, always the second time you come to a test, everything is easier. You know the running of the race itself, you know a lot of your rivals too, and then the running of the race itself, when the important moments are, what are the moments to relax a little more. Therefore, well, a little more concentration on the important things this year compared to the previous one.
Fernando Alonso wants to become one of the most accomplished racing drivers in history. Already with a pair of Formula One titles to his name and having won the 24 Hours of Le Mans, this Spaniard driver is obsessed with a win in the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Well, I followed the path marked last year with participation in the 500 miles, and this year I'll go for the 500 again, trying to get the Triple Crown and, well, adding legendary races like here in Daytona and others that hopefully come out during the year, and, well, trying to do something unprecedented in motorsport, winning in different categories or so, different driving specialties, because I think it is something from another time in the past, and replicating it now in the modern age, I think it is a great goal.
Sebastian Saavedra is a highly competitive driver from Bogota, Colombia. This year joining forces with the Mexican driver Roberto Gonzalez and the Venezuelan ex-Formula One driver Pastor Maldonado.
On the sporting side, I think that my experience at IMSA goes more to the knowledge of our opponents. So it's something they do not know. They come very well knowing what's happening in Europe, but not here in the United States. And that study is something that I did last year. Knowing who are at each moment and understand what type of driver they are. Is it the aggressive one? It's the one that's going to take risks? Is the one that's going to let you through? And that's the part that I would say that in my experience has reflected here with these Tigers. It is a race that at some point something will happen, and it's the thing, there is no clean race. There is no clean race in the 24 hours, and it's knowing how to take that situation with maturity, with patience, and keep in mind that there's still much ahead. So I think it will be the crucial part, the perseverance.
Saavedra dreams of triumph and shares his feelings when he reaches this temple of speed.
Well, as you can see, there's nothing on this wrist. What would I love that will happen? Well, to fill it with Rolex Daytona 24. I think it's what we came here for. There's not a single driver here that does not believe that you can win a competition, and if you're here thinking that you're not going to win, you're playing. What can happen? A very long race. Too much will happen, but now we concentrate on the day-to-day, lap to lap and turn to turn.
Hey race fans, this is Alex Riberas, driver of the 19 More Speed Audi R8, sponsored by Bordeaux, and welcome on board around one of my favorite racetracks, the Daytona International Speedway. So here we go, about to start the lap here in Daytona International Speedway, approaching start-finish line, migrating to the right before we arrive to this hard-braking zone at 175 miles per hour. Going to the first corner, very important to have a late apex close to the inside grass, using all the space on the exit and these little curves in this section. Braking at the 1 for the international horseshoe, very hard braking again, and late apex using the inside curb a little bit to get some good traction. This corner is very important to get a good run out of it to approach the kink, which is flat on this car, very smooth with the hands, and unwinding the steering wheel for this very hard braking zone in turn 5, using the inside curb to rotate the car and have a smooth exit on the inside, a little twinkle from the car here on exit, and braking for turn 6 here. One of the most important corners of the track, with a late apex close to the inside curb and getting a good traction out of this corner. This is fundamental for the lap time. I think you can make up a lot of time if you get a good run out of it. And here we go in the banking. You want to stay as low as possible as the prototypes constantly approach from behind, overtaking you on the higher end of the banking. And then we prepare ourselves for the famous bus stop on the third board, second board, hard braking zone. We use all the inside curb on the entry, high minimum speed, and progressively again on power to exit as fast as you can, trying to minimize the loss of miles per hour on the exit, and again going low on the last banking for the end of the lap, just trying to focus on the steering wheel being as smooth as possible. And here we also use to communicate with the team on the radio in case we want to tell them some things, and that's it, one lap around Daytona.
The story of the 2019 Rolex 24 featured as many twists and turns as the drivers faced out on the course during the hundreds of laps that make up this grueling endurance race, as Ryan Briscoe was forced to take the number 67 Ford GT back to the garage area. The big story heading into the race was the return of the Italian racing legend Alexander Zanardi. Zanardi's Rolex 24 got off to an inauspicious start as the paraplegic racing driver had to replace steering wheels unable to access the controls of his number 24 BMW M8. Several hours into the race, two-time Formula One world champion Fernando Alonso climbed aboard the number 10 Cadillac for his second go at the Rolex 24. A tense moment in pit lane as the teammates from Corvette Racing come in for service. Oliver Gavin makes contact with his team car, resulting in big damage on the number 3 Corvette. And as the sun went down, the number 10 Konica Minolta Cadillac from Wayne Taylor Racing ran down the Mazda to take over the race lead, showing off the veteran team's speed as the race progressed. Intensity ramped up throughout the field. Here in GT Daytona, the Wins Mercedes AMG goes toe-to-toe with the Audi from Monteplast by Land Motorsport through the first corners of the Daytona International Speedway. Not much later, there was the spin of DPI frontrunner, the number 55 Mazda, after contact with the 57 Acura from Heinricher Racing with Meyer Shank in the International Horseshoe. Both cars were able to continue, but with damage. After resuming to racing following a restart, Ricky Taylor overcooked it into the International Horseshoe as he bounced off of the inside of Timo Bernhard in the number 77 Mazda. The number 7 Acura suffered significant enough front-end damage that Taylor would ultimately have to pit for a front nose change. As the reigning class champion number 3 Corvette and the 911 Porsche continued to find each other on track. The number 3 Corvette is the defending class champion. Troubles for Mazda Team Yost continuing as here the number 55 Mazda goes around in the infield. After time in the garage area, the 55 would return. Up at the front of the pack, awesome on-track action here again between the two Cadillac teams of Whelen Engineering and the number 10 from Konica Minolta Wayne Taylor Racing. Then, as the weather forecasted, rain began to fall over the Daytona International Speedway. Tommy Milner in the Corvette here loses control under braking heading into turn 1. A fast and very scary impact that resulted in Milner being taken to the infield care center. The rain would only intensify, causing the first of what would be 2 red flag periods in the race. Drivers who were behind the wheel at the time of the red were called back to their cars to resume racing. The ensuing restart to green flag racing showcased just how rough the conditions on track actually were, as multiple cars were taken out in this crash on the front stretch. Following a late race restart, the GT Le Mans leader, Joey Hand, gets taken out here by a slipping and sliding Porsche. Meanwhile, at the head of the pack, this was a move for the overall race lead as Jordan Taylor ran down and stole the show from Pippo Durrani. Core Autosport threw its hat into the ring in the DPI ranks this season, and here Romain Dumas struggles to keep the new car underneath him in turn 6. The battle for the overall race lead did not calm down either between the number 10 and the number 31 cars. But as soon as the number 31 Cadillac had secured the race lead, turn 1 jumped out and bit them as well, as the car runs wide and gives the race lead back to the number 10 Cadillac. GT Daytona race leader Daniel Morad even went for a spin in the treacherous turn 1 in the wet. Alonso in the 10 car here was radioing about low visibility out on track. Here, he just narrowly avoids the carnage in front of him. He said he couldn't see anything. He misses the fence, fortunately, and keeps it together. And then, right as the full course yellow came out, a critical moment here for the Ford GT team. They were on a great strategy to make it to the end of the race, but would have to pit early to keep from running out of fuel right as the second red flag was displayed. And then the checkered flag finally waved, making the Wayne Taylor Racing and Konica Minolta Cadillac of Fernando Alonso, Jordan Taylor, Renger van der Zande, and Kamui Kobayashi the winners of this year's Rolex 24 at Daytona. IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship standings. DPI class. LMP2 class. GT Le Mans, GT Daytona, Another great attraction for the 2019 IMSA season is the Michelin Pilot Challenge. This series runs alongside the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship and premieres this year with Michelin as the main sponsor and tire supplier. Around 40 cars on the grid between the GS or Grand Sport and TCR touring car racing categories are expected. The first event of the season here at Daytona is the 4-hour-long BMW Endurance Challenge.
Last year, we were both teammates. We came into the event with a car that Dylan had raced the season before. We were up against a lot of newer cars that were new to teams. So we knew we would have a little advantage with the knowledge that Dylan brought to the table as far as what the car could do and what we needed to do to the car to make it fast. I went ahead and qualified, was able to snatch the pole in the last lap, started the race and led my stint. And after 30 minutes or so, pretty early on, we decided it was time to give it to Dylan. And he took over.
Yeah, I mean, being the longer 4-hour format at Daytona, it gave us a lot of room to play with the strategy, and we did a lot of different stuff with splitting tires and things of that nature.
In the pit order, I remember one time having to kind of come fight my way through the field, and it's always crazy at Daytona with all the drafting and all the strategy you have to play. And then about an hour to go, we did our final stop. You got in. And I think we inherited the lead on the pit cycle, which was all part of the plan with the team. And then you just did an awesome job driving it to the end, except no donuts.
That's true, yeah. No donuts, but yeah, I did have a fairly uneventful cruise to the finish. Hats off to the team and Spencer for giving me such an awesome car. There was no bumps or bruises on the car at all, so it was handling perfectly for me, and I was able to just kind of cruise to the end and take home the victory that just barely slipped away from us the year before after some pit cycles. But yeah, I mean, the team and Spencer, everybody did an absolutely perfect job to get us where.
This year, the ST class has been retired. We're now just using the GS and the TCR platforms, and we welcome a number of new participants, record attendance from the competitors, and a number of new manufacturers that are coming into the series. The tires are the most important thing on a car. Everything that you do in a car, you turn the steering wheel, you hit the brakes, you make more power with the engine, less power, everything goes through the tires to the ground. everything does it. So every change we make, every time we change a tire, every component on the car is affected. So these guys have worked really hard to get up to speed with the new tire, and Michelin's made a great tire for this kind of racing. It's stable, it's fast, and it's a durable tire. All we do now, from a serious perspective, is mandate a minimum full refilling time. So if, assuming the car is empty, it can't refill any longer than, or any faster than X time.
When the green flag fell on the BMW Endurance Challenge, the first round of the 2019 IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge, it was Paul Holton of Compass Racing grabbing the whole shot and leading the field of nearly 50 GS and TCR cars into a new year of racing and down into Turn 1 to kick off 4 hours of racing at Daytona International Speedway. While the orange and black McLaren of Holton gets the initial jump at the start and leads the field through Turn 1, Ty Majeski would remind everyone what American muscle is all about as he takes his number 15 Ford Mustang from Multimatic Racing to the lead in the International Horseshoe on lap 1. Christian Honedale in the number 57 Windward Racing Mercedes AMG gets into the mix as the pack flies through the infield, reminding everyone the high intensity even the longest races of the season can bring. Though Holton would reclaim the race lead nearly 30 minutes into the 4-hour race, the battle for third position had not calmed down at all. Tyler McQuarrie in the Audi had been working on Trent Hinman in the Porsche for a while and finally gets the pass for third place here through the fastest section of the infield. Spencer Pumpelly in the number 66 even becomes a part of this action as the pack heads back out onto the oval. A wild moment here in TCR. The battle for second place between Venezuelan Alex Papao in the red number 3 KMW Motorsports Alfa Romeo and Matt Pombo Honda Civic was already exciting and gets even more so as they have to split the Ford Mustang of Kenny Wilden, who was sitting facing the wrong direction in the middle of the track after spinning in Turn 1. Following a caution period that bunched the whole field back up, Tyler McQuarrie in the Audi leads the field back to the green flag, but it was the McLarens showing their speed on the restart. Near the front of the pack, Jesse Lazaire in the number 69 for Motorsports in Action goes for second place on the outside of Turn 1, while Kuno Whitmer, who was now at the wheel of the black and orange number 75 for Compass Racing, goes to work making up some positions after being handed a drive-through penalty for jumping a previous restart. With less than an hour left in the race, the TCR fight for the lead was flat out epic as Alex Papao and Tom O'Gorman put on a show of car control and respect for each other as they stayed door to door almost the entire first sector. Papao would win the battle as he took the race lead away from O'Gorman, but unfortunately the number 3 Alfa Romeo would not see the checkered flag in the first round of the season as it had to retire to the garage with engine problems. After leading 4 different times over the course of the race, Paul Holton and the number 75 Compass Racing McLaren that he shares with Kuno Whitmer leads its 58th lap of the race and, more importantly, the final lap of the BMW Endurance Challenge, scoring Whitmer and Holton the first win of the 2019 IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge. Not far behind Holton was the drag race for second place coming to the checkered flag. Chris Wilson in the number 99 Aston Martin from Automatic Racing just barely edges out Jesse Lazar for second position, as Lazar and Corey Fergus round out the podium in GS. In TCR, LA Honda World Racing swept the top 2 steps of the podium when Shelby Blackstock and Tom O'Gorman scored the victory, while Matt Pombo and Mike Lamara ran second place in their Honda Civic. IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge point standings. GS class. The TCR class.
It's IMSA's 50th anniversary season. Not only is the premier form of sports car racing in this country, but it is the best sports car championship in the world. Drivers, start your engines! Are you ready? This is the Rolex 24 at Daytona on your home of motorsport. Let's go! The twice round the clock classic begins now.
Here's a bit of drama. The 912 Porsche in the pit lane, Bruce.
Motor racing legend Alex Zanardi about to climb aboard for the first time. His first stint at Daytona. And there's an issue with the wheel. Alex had an issue firing the car. Here we go. Alex Zanardi's first stint at Daytona International Speedway. Damage on the front of the 3 Corvette. And it's just devastating from a team perspective, AJ. Look what happens.
Yeah, this is exactly why Roger Penske doesn't pit his cars together.
Here comes Alonso for a move on Castroneves for second place. Well, next the track turns right.
Great battle. Side by side they are through NASCAR 1 and 2.
But Castroneves this time has to allow Alonso to brake a little bit later. And Fernando Alonso now up to second place from what was fifth.
Down the inside goes Alonso.
Yes, he does.
He just decided, I'm going to go for this, and takes over the lead in car number 10.
We go into nighttime officially with a brand new leader. That's the first time the 10 car has led this year's race. And Fernando Alonso, truly epic stint so far.
Battles in GTD as the 33 in second place. And finally, the pass is made for the lead.
See the LMP2, the 52. Contact was made.
He's just in a terrible spot. You cannot see right now. They've got to throw the yellow.
Talk about taking risks.
My God. Mazda's program for both cars has just disappeared. The rain is coming down now, Jeremy. Look at the floodlights. It's absolutely hammering down.
From here on out, guys, it is really treacherous, and the track is just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Red flag is out.
Oh, we're going to go green this time around, despite the fact that the rain hasn't really eased off. In fact, it's arguably getting a little bit heavier. So now we kind of focus, Cal, looking towards the checkered flag, but maybe not towards the checkered flag, maybe racing to another point in this race, weather dependent.
If you believe you can make the move, you have to make it now, because if the conditions get any worse, we may go back to red flag conditions, and suddenly it's game over.
Pits are open and already coming in the 10 and the 6 cars.
This is one of the Penske cars that had been fighting for the lead overnight. Engine cover is off there, looking in the engine bay. That is not a good sign.
Green is flying through the tri-oval, back to racing here at Daytona.
Side by side, oh man!
Naz has decided to take it into his own hands. New race leader.
Oh, drama down in turn 1.
Oh, the GTLM leader! All on his own. Jordan Taylor trying to preempt what was going on. Blimey, that was incredibly close.
When people get round turn 1, I'll mention it. If they spin, I won't bother, because it's actually easier to do it that way. And Alonso goes by into the lead. Nasser will be kicking himself, and the red flag is out. And that's Ford. Number 67 came in from the lead. So as it stands under the red flag, Farfus and BMW have the top position. The checkered flag is waved with 11 minutes to go. It's all over here at the 57th running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Fans, thank you so much for joining us today. In the next episode, the series heads to Central Florida and the historic Sebring International Raceway for round 2 of the 2019 season. This time, the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring. To keep up with everything on and off track, be sure to follow IMSA on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you down the road on another episode of IMSA, The Road to Racing.